Good afternoon to everybody. I'm Carlo Barbante. I'm the moderator of this webinar of today. I'm actually director of the Institute for the Dynamic of Environmental Processes at CNR in Venice, and I'm also the president of the Italian National Society on Climate Sciences. And we are hosting this webinar together with the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. And this is, of course, a joint effort to broadcast this seminar of Dr. Sergio Castellari. The fact that we are co-organizing it is that because we want to launch today CISC 18, which is the annual conference of the Italian Scientific Society on Climate Change, that will be held in Venice in October 17, 19, 2018. Actually, the call for abstract is open. It opened today, so you can go on the website of the society to look at the call for the abstract. We are actually more than 100 attendees to this seminar. And the seminar, I want to remind you, that is registered, so you can ask and visit the website of CMCC to download the webinar of today. So another thing that I want to point out, an organizational detail for that, is that I want to invite you to join the discussion, sending questions, and for doing that you have to go to the webinar on the panel on the right side of your screen and ask a question. And doing that, please give your name and send the affiliation so we can better handle the question and answer session at the very end. Let's start with the seminar. The seminar will be held by Sergio Castellari, who is well-known in the field of climate change. Sergio holds a degree in physics from University in Bologna, and then a PhD in meteorology and physical oceanography. He spent most of his career working on climate-related issues, and is actually seconded to the European Environmental Agency in Copenhagen, where he's working on impact, vulnerability, adaptation to climate change, disaster risk reduction. He was formerly at ENGV in Bologna, and then also affiliated to the Euro-Mediterranean Center on climate change. He was also a contact point for several years, national focal point for Italy for IPCC, and as I told you, he's actually in EEA in Copenhagen. He will tell us today about the adaptation to climate change in Europe, specifically in Europe, linking knowledge, policies, and practice, and especially integrating the climate change adaptation and risk reduction, which is a priority in the European agenda. So I would therefore leave the floor to Sergio for this interesting webinar, and I'll wait you at the end of this in half an hour more or less for the question and answer session. Please use the panel on your right, put your name and affiliation if you have any question. Thank you very much and enjoy the webinar. Sergio, the floor is yours.
Euro-Mediterranean Center for giving me this opportunity to outreach the contents of this recent report addressing climate change adaptation, CCA, and disaster risk reduction in Europe. And I will talk also about, I will show some relevant natural hazards which we present in this report, and which is also part of our list of indicators available at the website of EA. I will talk about economic losses, some case study and good practice of integration between adaptation and disaster risk reduction, and some further work which can be done in order to improve this integration. Okay, so let's start. First of all, the EA is not a financing body, is not a policy body like the European Commission. We are an agency. We are an agency producing assessment of knowledge, and we're also dealing with indicators of environment, climate change, and energy. And we also have specific reports which are called integrated environmental assessment. So all these reports are for us a way to support the policymaker at the national level, at the European level, in the European area. We, as EA, we coordinate a network which is larger than the European Union 28 member state, which is called EONET, the European Environment Information Observation Network. As you can see on the right side of the slide, this is a larger Europe, includes also, beside the 28 member states of European Union, other countries. So the total is 33 plus 6 cooperating countries, which are the Balkanian countries, which are highlighted in yellow in the map of Europe. Every of these countries, they are available in our meetings through a national focal point and national reference center. So experts which work in specific area. In my case, since I work here at the EA in the group dealing with climate change, impact, vulnerability, adaptation, I usually deal with the 33 plus the 6 cooperating country national reference center on adaptation. And the EA, beside coordinating this large EONET of member states, is also working with, is also carrying on his activity with the support of 6 European topic centers. These topic centers are consortia of European countries, which they win a call, a bid, and for a certain number of years they support in the different activities the European Environment Agency. Here I'm highlighting the 6 topic centers. So we have topic centers dealing with air pollution and climate change mitigation, biological diversity, impacts, vulnerability, adaptation, inland, coastal and marine water, urban land and soil system, waste and material in a green economy. I want to also highlight that the topic center on impact, vulnerability, adaptation is in the last more or less 7 years, if I'm correct, has been coordinated from CMCC, from the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. Now, we produce, as I mentioned before, several reports. Here in this slide, I'm only showing to you the report which they deal with the CCIVA, climate change, impact, vulnerability, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction. We have every 5 years, we publish a general assessment at the European level on the impact and vulnerability. And beside that, we've been also publishing sectorial report on sector like urban adaptation or adaptation in the transport sector, nature-based solution, flood risk, and lately also this new report on the integration about adaptation and disaster risk reduction. Now, let's start on the main part of my presentation. 2017 has been a special year for disaster and for climate, I mean, for weather and climate-related extreme event, and also for disaster. We had forest fire in different countries, especially in South of Europe. We had storms, we had heat waves, and also at the global level, everybody remembered the very active and dynamic hurricane season in the Atlantic. So for sure, this is gave a very strong highlight this last year to the issue of how can we prevent and how can we respond to the potential damage created from the weather and climate extreme events. So in the last 2 years here at the Environment Agency, we have been developing with the support of a large number of experts from the European Topic Center on Climate Change, impact, vulnerability, and also from the Topic Center on Water. We decided to work on a report addressing 2 main issues, which have been working so far in a parallel way, the climate change adaptation and the disaster risk reduction. And this is the report which was published in October of last year. We decided on purpose to put a lovely picture in the cover of our report. Why? Because this report doesn't want to only deal with extreme event and natural hazard, but also on solution. So which kind of solution we can find in order to face and react to this natural hazard. And so in the main cover of the report, you see a nature-based solution, a green adaptation we can call, or a green infrastructure to deal with with the climate change. And this is in particular is a river in the Netherlands, close to the town of Wageningen. And this is a so-called renaturalization of the river in order to prevent potential future flooding. The report on CCA and DRR has been presented formally at the Committee of the Region on the 17th of October last year. And here in this slide, which is very crowded, full of names, is showing all the authorship of this report. So this is we can really call this report a European report, because we have expertise from a national institution from the different countries of Europe. We have experts from the Commission, from international organizations like OECD, or as a UN organization like WHO. And we have also experts from the European Environment Agency. As you can see here, we have a lot of also Italian experts from CNCC, which has been contributing a relevant part of this report. In order to make a peer review report, we also set up an advisory group, and we had also a list of reviewers. So this report has been reviewed from the EA member state, so the AUNET member state, and also has been reviewed from international organization experts. Now, this report I also been presenting at the last COP, Conference of the Party of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, in Bonn, in Germany, last November. Now, when we mean about adaptation, we mean a way to deal with vulnerability and resilience. With adaptation, but also disaster risk reduction, they have for sure a common objective: to increase the resilience of the society, to decrease the vulnerability of the society to the present, to the current, to the future climate change impacts. But they start in two different ways. The climate change adaptation is focusing more on past trend and future projection, made carry on with the climate models, and is addressing also this uncertainty coming out from the climate change projection. And is dealing mainly with weather and climate and hydrological extreme events, so with heat waves, forest fire, with floods, with intense precipitation. Instead, the disaster risk reduction community, they are dealing with all the different extreme events, and even with the geophysical extreme event like earthquakes or volcano eruption. The origin also, they are different. One, adaptation is for sure a newer community which started around 15, 20 years ago, and this origin comes from the science, climate change science, and also IPCC had a specific role in enhancing the concept and reinforcing the concept of adaptation to climate change. On the other side, the disaster risk reduction has been originated in more in the civil protection and humanitarian assistance environment. The key actors are different also. Usually adaptation is involving more the Ministry for Environment, the national level or regional level, and the agency, the scientific institution. On the other side, the DRR is involving more traditionally the Civil Protection Agency and the Ministry of Interior or Ministry of Civil Protection and the humanitarian agency. But both of them, as I said before, they have a common objective: reducing vulnerability and increasing resilience of society. But in the European country, these two approaches are not always working together. They're not always working and seeing each other as two complementary approaches to address the same objective. So in our report, we try to analyze the challenge, we try to analyze case study, and we try to define some good practice which we found existing at the European level. And we also highlight the benefits of a good integration, good coherence between these two approaches. Some benefits are for sure that having a more effective integration between CCA and DRR can bring to a more effective and efficient policy, can be also improved to have an efficient use of financial and human resource, and also to create a better prevention and preparedness for the climate, for the weather and climate extreme events. CCI DRR are key already in the last year in the Sustainable Development Agenda at the global and European level. Here in this slide, I'm highlighting very briefly the key the key document, the key points at the global level and the European level. From the global level, we have a UNFCCC Paris Agreement, which in Article 7 is dealing in a very clear way with the need for more adaptation at national level and regional and local level for all the parties of the UNFCCC. We had also, in the same time of the Paris Agreement, in the same year, we had the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which has been adopted in the same year, 2015, which is basically addressing more the DRR point of view, but for the first time, this big agreement define climate change and climate variability as driver for disaster risk. And then we have the Sustainable Development Goals, which among them there are some of the goals which are dealing with climate change or are dealing with adaptation and DRR. At the European level, we have for sure the key document is the European Adaptation Strategy, which was adopted in 2013 and which is now currently is under evaluation from the Commission. We have the European Union Civil Protection Mechanism, which is dealing with the country on the issue of civil protection, multi-other assessment, and we have also now the European Union Action Plan for implementing Sendai. We can also find elements of adaptation and DRR in the Flood Directive and the Green Infrastructure Strategy. In our report, we selected 10 natural hazards which we consider relevant for the relevancy of their impact on the European society. We have river flood, landslide, avalanche, heat waves, heavy precipitation, windstorm, storm surge, hail, droughts, forest fire. I'm not going to show all these indicators in this presentation. I just give you a couple of slides about three indicators of extreme event. Here I'm showing to you the baseline from 1980 to 2012 of the extreme heat waves. So extreme heat waves are heat waves which they create a strong impact in the society. And so far, the most extreme heat waves in Europe in the last 20 years, they've been the heat wave of 2003, which had its center in France, and the 2010 heat wave, which took place especially in the Eastern Europe and Russia. So as you can see here, we can see in the baseline these two heat waves, the Russian and the French, I would say Central European heat waves. And here with a projection with the RCP 4.5, which is not the most extreme, is a scenario which implies around the warming of 3 degrees by the end of this century. We have that the number of these extreme heat waves will increase with climate change by the half of this century, and we can have at least one extreme heat waves every 5-10 years, according to this scenario, the 4.5. If we go further in time, we go up to the end of the century, as you can see, South Europe will be exposed, will be impacted from more frequent extreme heat waves, according to this projection with the RCP 4.5, and Europe, some part of Europe, of Southern Europe, will be affected from one extreme heat waves every 2-3 years. So climate change will be an amplifier of this already existing extreme heat waves, and it will increase the frequency, especially of these heat waves in some part of Europe. If we go to the heavy rain projection, here on this slide, you can see on the left, we have the end of the century with the same climate change, with the same scenario, the winter and the summer. I just want to point out the summer panel on the right side, where you can see that, again, South Europe will be exposed to a less heavy rain projection on average in the summer, comparing to the North Europe. We're talking about a change in heavy rain in percentage, as you can see from the brown area, around between 5 and 25% less of heavy rain amount. Then we go to the risk of forest fire, which are important. As you remember, in 2017, some South European countries have been affected from this forest fire risk. And here we can see the baseline between 1961 and 1990. And you can see this risk is a combination of climatic drivers. So the heat stream, the population density, and also the fire exposure and the fire sensitivity. So it's a combined risk index. And as you can see that the South Europe is under a very high risk of forest fire at the present time. And if we go further in time, we go now to the half of this century, and you can see that the South Europe will remain under a very high risk of forest fire, but now also Central Europe and South Scandinavia will be entering a more medium risk. If we go even further, with the end of the century, we can reach the point that South Scandinavia will also enter in a high risk level of forest fire. So this risk of forest fire is moving northward, amplified from climate change. Now we go to the economic loss in Europe. We've been using, for the estimation of the economic loss of these natural hazards, the NatCat service provided by Munich Re through an agreement between the EA and Munich Re. And here we have the estimation of the economic loss of the last 37 years, from 1980 to 2016. We have the meteorological extreme event, storm, heavy precipitation, hail, the hydrological, river floods, landslide, avalanche, and the climatological, heat waves, droughts, and forest fire. Mainly, you can see that more or less the meteorological and the hydrological are the two categories which created the largest economic loss in Europe in this last more or less 4 decades, sorry. And we are talking about here from 1980 to 2016 about a total loss of around 436 billion of euro. If we make an average over this period, we can see that an average is around 12 billion of euro per year. And this can be comparable to a GDP of a small European Union member state like Malta or Cyprus. So we're talking about actually a huge amount of money, but this is just a linear average. Instead, we had different years with different annual value of economic loss. And another issue which I want to highlight is that considering all this economic loss in Europe, and we're talking about the larger Europe, so the EONET, the EA member state, the 33 country, only 1/3 of this had been insured. So this data, they're showing the fact that we have some country where 1-2% have been insured, to countries like, for example, UK, which actually will reach 70% of insured. Here, instead, I'm showing the fatalities in Europe, same period, same geographical coverage, the EA member state, and we're talking about 90,000 fatalities. 2/3 of them, around 70,000 fatalities, they've been caused from the heat wave, the strong heat wave, which hit Europe in 2003. In fact, as you can see, 90% of these fatalities are due to heat waves, but also to droughts and to forest fires. Now, it's not easy to extract a climate change attribution from a trend, from a record of economic damage, economic loss. And even IPCC is basically stating that the long-term trends in economic disaster loss adjusted for wealth and population increase have not been attributed to climate change, but a role played by climate change has not been excluded. And this is a key line which have been taken from the IPCC AR5 Working Group 1, which was published in 2013. So here you can see the record from the same time, from 1980 to 2016. Now we're talking about only European Union, 28 member states, of the economic loss due from weather and climate. So the same categories, meteorological, hydrological, and climatological. And as you can see, it's not easy, it's not straightforward to develop, to highlight a trend, an increasing trend. You have some interannual variability, and because here we are not talking about, for example, heavy precipitation, where we can really detect a clear signal of climate change. Here we are talking about a more complicated variable, which is depending, as I was stating before, not only to climate change, but also to economic wealth, development in other prone areas, and increase of population also. But anyway, the key measure which we can see from this record is the fact that we have economic damage taking place in Europe. We're talking about a big amount of money, but with an improved resilience, we can reduce in the future this loss. Now, in practice, what we have in Europe as a case study of an integration of adaptation with the disaster risk reduction. We have been analyzing 18 case studies. I cannot go through them, just I'm going to show you very briefly the different countries where we selected this case study. We group this case study in 3 different groups. One by horizontal coordination. So, for example, the coordination between the same minister, the minister with the different ministers, about Ministry for Environment, the Ministry for Interior. So we selected the case study where we could find this good established coordination at horizontal level. We group case study according to the vertical coordination, national, regional, local. And then we group, this was the largest number, where we found already a well-established implementation of integration of adaptation with disaster risk reduction. We, analyzing this 18 case study, we developed a good practice concept. And going through all this case study, we selected 6 good practice. The first good practice is coming from the Netherlands, the Delta program, and this is considered from us as a programmatic approach which is well supported by adequate funding and with a long-term strategy, which deliver a very effective integration of CCA and DRR in practicing this by using adaptation. For example, they've been implementing adaptation with DRR using the adaptation pathway. So they've been integrating their planning with climate change projection, with an estimation of uncertainty. And another good practice which we selected among the case study is basically a general good practice about the insurance. So we found that 3 countries, Spain for the Consorcio de Compensación de Seguros and the French Catastrophe Naturelle and the UK, the British Flood or Insurance Scheme, we found that these are insurance schemes which are key in combining not only the risk transfer and mitigation in public-private cooperation, but also in creating incentives for risk prevention and helping to improve the understanding of climate change risk among the citizens. Another good practice we found in Switzerland. In Switzerland, we found a good combination of national agenda, horizontal and vertical established. Then we have the national risk assessment, which we found as important key tools to improve the integration of CCI DRR. And so far, not all the country in the European Union has been developing effective and updated national risk assessment. So we think this should be a tool which should be enhanced at the national level in Europe. And then we go to the city networks. We found the city network, for example, the most relevant, we all know in Europe, is the Covenant of Mayor of Climate and Energy. We found the city network very effective in increasing the urban resilience, which has been dealing with adaptations and the DRR in the same time. And the final good practice is nature-based solution. A nature-based solution or green adaptation or green DRR is a good way to integrate CCI DRR and bring in also many benefits to both approaches, CCA and DRR. And we selected as a good practice the role of the European Investment Bank in financing a new natural-based solution to address the climate change impact of the extreme events. So how can we improve further this relationship between CCA and DRR? We've been, in the last chapter of the report, we've been working on possible opportunity to increase this coherence. And one could be to give more power to the platform. We're talking about a web platform or stakeholder platform dealing with CCA and DRR. Here, for example, I'm showing you the platform at the European level, which we have been managing so far. We are managing here at the European Environment Agency with the support of the Topic Center on Climate Change, Impact, Vulnerability, Adaptation. And in Europe, not all the European countries, they have a national platform on adaptation, but many countries, they already have some stakeholder platform or a web platform on DRR. So we think that improving, enhancing the role and the installing of this platform at CCA DRR can improve really the relation between CCA DRR. Another is the multi-hazard mapping and risk assessment. We need at the European level, at the national level, to develop more comprehensive multi-hazard risk assessment. Then climate service. Climate service in the last year, climate service, they are the community of climate service, they should and they are already working on to try to open more to the disaster risk reduction. They were coming from the community of adaptation, but now they are opening more to the DRR. So a further enhancement, empowerment of this will be beneficial for the better integration between CCA and DRR. Then we have long-term national approach. We've been studying the Delta program case, and we found that a country or a region with a well-established long-term, sustained financially approach could be a very, very good way to integrate better these two communities dealing with resilience and vulnerability. Natural-based solution, again, we found a good practice, but we need to see more natural-based solution financed in all the European countries, because this is one of the best ways at the urban, for example, or regional level to address the impact of the weather and climate extreme events. Then more financing. For sure, we need more financing for risk prevention. And finally, the monitoring and evaluation of policy. The MRE scheme, which some countries already be developed at the European level for their own national adaptation plan, this should be becoming more frequent in all the European countries, and they should also be dealing more with the disaster risk reduction. So this concludes my presentation. I really hope that I motivate you to download this report from the website of the European Environment Agency. You can download only the executive summary or all the full report, and you can use the report in any way you like. And you can also order the paper version, the printed version, to us in our office here in Copenhagen. I'd like to thank you, and I'm available for some questions.
Thank you very much, Sergio. I hope everybody can listen to me. Yes, I invite you to put some question on the panel that you have on your right. There are some already on the screen that I want to put and ask to Sergio. But first of all, I have a comment, Sergio, and my comment is on how the European Environmental Agency recommendation are taken at national or regional level. Which channel do you use to communicate and to make people aware of what all is going on that?
I'm sorry, Carlo, I missed the first part of your question. Can you repeat them?
Sure, I can. You did an excellent job, but I was wondering how European Environment Agency recommendations are taken at national and or at regional level. So which channel do you use to distribute your findings?
Okay, our channel, formal channel, is the AONET, this network of 33 countries, a larger Europe, and the 6 cooperating countries from the Balkan area. This is our formal network. And so in each topics we're dealing, in my case, I'm dealing with the climate change impact, vulnerability, adaptation. We have 3 meetings with a national focal point every year and 1 workshop completely fully dedicated 2 days to the issue of climate change impact, vulnerability, adaptation. In this workshop, taking place most of the time in Copenhagen at the headquarters of the EA, we are presenting new report, new products, indicators, and our work in progress and our already concluded work to the member countries. And we establish a dialogue, we have open session, and the next workshop, AONET workshop dedicated to this issue will take place at the beginning of June this year here in Copenhagen. So this is our main forum which we use for dealing with the member state, so AONET. On the other hand, also we have our reports which anybody can download and can always contact our group for further information. And also the Commission, we are working very strictly with the Commission. In our case, as a group, we are working with DG Environment, DG Clim, and DG Eco in GRC.
Thank you, Sergio. By the way, we are receiving a lot of very positive comment on your talk, and I congratulate with you. I stay on this topic that I asked you a minute ago, because Fina Beitel from Advisory Council for Sustainable Development of Government of Catalonia is asking, how does the European Commission organize internally about the CCA and DRR and the Sustainable Development Goal Agenda 2030? Is there any platform as a Climate Adapt for CCA or so on that you know?
CCA has been dealt primarily from DG Clima on the policy level, on the technical level from the EA and GRC. And on DRR, we have DG Eco as a primary actor at the policy level in the European Commission. And GRC, for example, just established a few years ago the Disaster Risk Management Knowledge Center, which I invite the expert which just asked this question to enroll. She can become a member of this newsletter, and she can go to the GRC website, and she can enroll in this Disaster Risk Management Knowledge Center. And also, they also produce a report. They already published last year, in the same year, so when we published just a few months before of us, a report on the science of disaster risk management at the European level. And now they're planning to make another report in a few years from now, in 2020, still in the DRR, but also with the linkage with adaptation. So we have a lot of working groups, we have a lot of forum for discussion, for sharing experience. And also, for example, I like to highlight also the Covenant of Mayors of Energy and Climate. We are also in contact with them. We are working with them on urban adaptation. If you go to our website or our platform, sorry, the Climate Adapt, you will see, for example, the urban adaptation tool, which is a tool which can support the municipality in developing their own agenda on adaptation, but also DRR. So there are many, many things. Commission for the policy, GRC and EA for more the scientific technical part, and we are all dealing now more in an integrated way.
Thank you again, Sergio. And what about the future? Claire Downing from UK CIP in Oxford is asking, how will the finding and learning from the report be taken forward into the future? Let's say to improve cooperation between DRR and CCA in countries, or improving implementation and so on. What's the plan for the future?
Okay, for sure, one of the key tools is to improve, to put more contents on CCA and DRR and Climate Adapt. Climate Adapt for us is the main tool. So now we have been finalizing an evaluation of our Climate Adapt platform, which has been dealing mainly on CCA, on climate change adaptation. And one of the change which will be implemented this year and next year will be also, beside this, one of the change will be to increase the highlight of the DRR integrated with CCA. And so this will be one of the follow-up action which the EA were thinking to do. Then we are also discussing here at the EA to have another report more on the practical study. This report on an integration of CCA DRR had only one chapter on case study and one chapter on good practice. But actually, these things are progressing. So we have more examples of integration of CCA DRR going on at the European level, at the larger European level, the EA level. So we are thinking about with the interaction with the member state, which basically this is the key point, to develop a new report where we can share the good example of already good integration with the other country coming from other, highlighted in the report. So all our reports are done with a strong interaction with the member state through the AONET. Also, the report which I presented today, we had an expert meeting and the survey among the member states of the EA before writing the report. So a follow-up will be maybe a second volume, more on the practical case.
Yeah, this reminds me another question from Domenico Vito from Politecnico di Milano, who is asking which is the role of early warning system and how they can connect to CCA and DDR in terms of information flow between agency and citizen and so on.
The early warning system is a key tool for DRR and is also a tool which can deal with adaptation, because adaptation is more focusing on prevention and preparedness. So an early warning which was born more on the DRR community now is expanding also to deal with adaptation. For example, I give you an example from my country. I am Italian, as you can understand from my accent, and my region, Emilia-Romagna, last year implemented a web alert system at the regional level, which is a transparent system, real-time, H24, providing information to the stakeholder, to the institutional stakeholder of the region, and also to all the citizens which are interested to get this kind of information in real time about all the different natural hazards hitting our region. So this kind of software and the web system, H24, is one of these early warning systems which can be very useful to take a better role, an increasing role also in the climate change adaptation, not only for the disaster risk.
Thank you again, Sergio. I want to inform that the room is full. We are about 180 persons following the webinar. So thank you very much for the really huge attendance. There is another question, since we have a little bit more time, about the, you mentioned a very interesting Dutch case study. There is, however, very little mention on social adaptation for disaster and climate risk in the CCA and DDR in Europe report. How important is the role of communities and local government as agents of the adaptation for the European Environmental Agency? I mean,
yeah, you got yes, one of the topics.
Yeah. I can't see, is Zera Zaidi the question, the person who asked this question?
Yeah, so actually in this, really in this year, EA is working on a new report dealing with the social vulnerability, so with the key role of the community at the local level. And in the past, we already had 2 reports on urban adaptation, and the last one was more on the financing tools, how to support financially the adaptation at the local level. In our report, we've been dealing with the community in a very brief way when we were talking about the good practice, for example, in the chapter of the good practice, and also when we highlight, for example, yes, the Delta program case and the city network, but yes, we didn't deal in too much on that. This maybe could be an element which we can be highlighted in the potential possible second volume of this report. But in the same time, we have a new report more on the social vulnerability, which will come out soon from the EA.
Thank you, Sergio. I have another question that comes from Dr. Syed Hussein. He's asking how European Environmental Agency contribute to the rest of the world from its positive and result-oriented practice to combat or reduce the effect of climate change, especially in urban areas. So is that a case study that can be transferred into other domains, or how can you do that?
I mean, so I don't know if I capture correctly the question. So the European Environment Agency is working for the large community of the EA, so this 33 country and 6 cooperating country. We are not working outside of this area, but we are dealing with the Commission, European Commission, the European Union has a lot of international program working with the country outside of European Union. In our case, we think that the good practice we've been highlighting are good practice for all the world. I mean, can be good practice for all the world. We selected among the case study at the European level, but for sure, a practice like the way to dealing with CCADR in Switzerland or on the Netherlands can be considered a good practice also in US, in Africa, or in South America. I don't know if I answered correctly to the question.
I think so, but coming closer to where we live, I mean, can we fill the gap in information from Balkan countries that there was a hole in the map that you have shown? I mean, so do you have?
Okay, is basically the map you're talking about, the AONET map. The AONET map include that country as cooperating countries. So they're not fully member of the EA, but they are cooperating countries. So I mean, this is the situation as we are now.
Yep, something that I'm going to ask you in my role of the in the program committee of Horizon 2020, how this EA is connected to the European Horizon 2020 projects. Are you working close together with that?
Okay, yes. Myself and also several of my colleagues, we are invited to be part of advisory scientific board of a European project. So when the project have been winning the bid, being financially supported from European Union, they can ask to be member of the advisory board, expert at international level. So they can have national level expert or international level from a UN agency, also from European agencies. So in my case, I am a member of 3 projects. One is an H2020, is a placard, and I am a member also advisory board of 2 life projects, Primes and the Rainbow. So my colleagues also, they do the same. So in our group, we are very active and we are really like to interact with ongoing research or more interreg or life project, more applicative project. And so this is our connection with the world of the research at the European level.
Thank you again, Sergio. And another question regards the that's a big total economic loss, as we have seen, is bigger than 436 billion, you said. Beside this direct costs, there are also indirect costs because of extreme events, how extreme event can affect and shape ecosystem, and those having an impact on the services and on the services that they provide. How can be all that taken into account? Because as you,
yeah, sure. I mean, the direct economic cost, both of them are very important. The indirect costs are more difficult to be estimated, and so far at the EA we have a special agreement with Munich Re in getting the economic loss reported from Munich Re. But so this is already one step. But actually, we are waiting at the European level to have a common reporting for all the disaster loss for each nation, for each country at the European level. And this could improve in the economic loss reporting in the future for the report of the EA. But so far, we have been bounded to be using the Munich Re data, which can give us this kind of metrics. And but for sure, the indirect economic costs are very, very important. And what I invited the participant to go to our indicator webpage and to try to check all the different information we have. And we have also a presentation of the different economic costs for different countries, but still based on Eurostat in one side and Munich Re on the other side.
Okay, Sergio, thank you very much. We had more than 180 attendees. The time is now over. I'm sorry. We received about 50 questions, so there is no room for asking and answering to all of them. But I'm sure Sergio will be able to do if reached by an email. Before closing, and there is a couple of things that I want to tell you, and this is about the forthcoming CMCC webinar. The next one is presented by Giovanni Coppini, will be on the 27th of March, and is on the Blue Growth, Science, Society and Innovation, a focus on the Mediterranean and Black Sea. And the presenter, as I said, is Giovanni Coppini of CMCC, and the moderator will be Simona Masina, again of the CMCC. So that's all what I wanted to say. Thank you for attending to this CMCC webinar, which is also co-organized by the Italian Scientific Society on Climate Change. The webinar has been recorded and can be downloaded from the CMCC website very, very soon. If you have any question about the webinar, please go to that ask to this email address. Let me thank you all for the huge participation and very active. More than 45 questions have been asked. Thank you, Sergio, for your great presentation. A lot of congratulations I see in the question as well. So thank you very much, and
thank you.
I suggest you to really download this interesting report. Thank you very much, and at next time.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot to MCC, Carlo, Six, and the participant. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.